There are some first steps that people either ignore or don't think about. Even if you can't see cameras, there's a good chance that they're there. Just because you qualify for X amount, you really have to be comfortable with X amount, right? Mm-hmm. So we had an issue with these really, really nice garage cabinets. Obviously, they're attached to the wall, and upon final walkthrough, they had disappeared.
They took the cabinets in the garage?
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. It's been a couple weeks since we filmed the first one, and I thought you covered a lot of really important things that are talked about in the real estate world, but you had the nitty gritty, and I had the idea of sitting down with you and going through the entire buying process, because it can seem like a lot to someone. You know, I'm a realtor, but I remember in the first time I was taking the test and understanding the information, I'm like, you have to get pre-approved. What does that mean? And it can feel like a lot. You know?
Well, hey, look, what if you've never done it before?
Yeah.
Or if you've done it, but it's been 10 years.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. So I figured let's just kind of walk through each of these steps. I have a few things on this list. I know that we'll probably ask questions as we normally do. So let's start with the very first one. Decide why you're buying. What does that mean?
Well, I think it's important because that'll form some of your non-negotiables, some of the wants that you have. It'll form your timeline. And it will be different for everybody. Let's say you are buying because you're expecting a child and you just simply need a bigger place, or you've rented and now you're at a point in your life where you want to actually own that property, which I completely understand. Or it's a second home that you're looking for, or an investment property. It could be a number of things, but formulating a strong why of what you are planning on accomplishing will kind of set up everything else.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of details with buying a home. You know, there's bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, year builds, all the idiosyncrasies. And usually people come at it with like, I need to have a pool, or I need to have 3 bedrooms, or I can't afford an HOA. I'd hate that. What's your opinion on setting a non-negotiable for your search? And do people tend to stick with those?
Well, what I would suggest first off, your non-negotiables should probably be things that are either very, very difficult to change or impossible to change, like location.
Okay, before you continue, why? Why should it be difficult?
Well, you can't change location. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you need to be, I worked with a nurse where she was on call and she had to be physically within a 30 or 40 minute drive, I don't remember which, from the hospital if there was an emergency. So once you purchase, you can't change that location, or if you had to be in a certain area for a certain school, location's impossible to change. Now, 3 bedrooms versus 4 bedrooms versus something larger, that's really, really difficult to change also. If you're looking at a house, I want light colored walls. Okay, well, if you walked into the perfect place that had dark walls, paint's easy to fix.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that's easier to fix. Updating to a point is easy to fix. Pools are harder to add, but you can add a pool in many situations.
Okay, so you can add an in-ground pool.
You can, sure, and a lot of people do.
Okay. Let's say someone is looking at buying their first house, and they've never bought one before. You know, they're a new family. Are there any things that they should consider in their search, or things that you found over all your years of real estate?
Well, what I would suggest, let's back up a little bit. Let's, first-time home buyer, really any home buyer, but especially first-time home buyer. There are some first steps that people either ignore or don't think about. Mm-hmm. And the first steps would be, number one, hire your professionals, talk to professionals, one being a realtor, because they can help you through the process. and avoid pitfalls, know where the pitfalls are at. And the other second one that is hand in hand is to search out and hire a good lender.
Okay.
Even if you believe you're not quite ready yet, search that out. That should really be your first step. And we've talked about this before in one of our other videos about what not to do when buying a home.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about that, but there's more detail in the other video. But the mistake people make is, hey, I've got a good credit score, I've got a good job, getting a loan's no big deal, no problem. So I'm going to put that off. And as they look for homes, maybe they find the perfect property. Maybe that perfect property has a packed open house and they really need to act today. Well, guess what? If you send in an offer contingent on financing, the seller and the listing agent is going to expect something from some documentation, a pre-qualification letter, a pre-approval letter from a lender, to showing them that you've talked to a lender, they've crunched the numbers, and you're good to go with financing. If you don't have that, a lot of times you won't even get your offer considered. So now you found the perfect home, you want to put an offer on it, and you can't.
Yeah.
And now you have to talk to a lender. And okay, at the very, very, most inconvenient or least inconvenient would be maybe that costs you a day or two. Maybe something shows up on your credit report, or maybe there's a detail that you didn't really consider in your loan qualification, which can be handled, but maybe it takes 30 to 45 days to handle. Maybe there's something that shows up on your credit card or your credit report that blows up your ratios that can be fixed, but you can't fix it in 24 hours.
Yeah. So let's kind of camp out there for a second.
Yep.
Choosing an agent and a lender is a big deal. I mean, it feels like in Southwest Florida, every single person has a real estate license.
Yeah.
And even more, at least know or have a lender. How can you tell that a real estate agent or a lender is not just experienced, but good at their job?
Well, let's talk about the agent first. If you call this potential person and a couple of times having a hard time getting calls back in a timely manner, that could be a pretty good sign that it's maybe someone that you don't want to work with. So someone who gets back to you in a timely manner, I think is crucial, because there's going to be times where you need an answer right away. We want to be as responsive as possible. The other thing I believe is experience. You've heard of the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
Whereas 20% of whatever does 80% of the work or business or whatever. And I think in real estate, it's probably closer to a 90-10. So
Yeah. We actually just nerded out about this. It's a Pareto distribution,
it's a Pareto distribution. Yeah, exactly. So what that says is there's a whole lot of people out there that have licenses that have minimal experience, and they may be good people, and and not saying that those people can't do a good job for you, but between someone brand new and someone that's been around a little while, it's just something to consider when you're thinking about hiring a realtor. Let's talk about lender real quick.
Yeah, and then I got 2 questions after that. So
Okay. There's a lot of people that can get you a mortgage loan. Your bank, whether it's one of the big national or regional banks, they all have mortgage departments. There's many, many mortgage lenders that are brokers, correspondent lenders. We won't go into big detail of the difference there. The big question is are there better institutions or institutions that are less well? And I will say, this might bend a little, ruffle a few feathers, but in my experience, in the delays caused by financing, many times, and I would say the majority of time, the lender is one of the big banks, big regional banks. You know the names. And the reason why is you have to understand that in their world, purchase mortgage is an ancillary product. It is a portion of their business that they believe that they feel like they have to provide. And there's a loan officer there that sometimes they're all online, or there's a call center, which a lot of them have gone to. Sometimes there's a local mortgage originator. But the processing side, once that file's put together and it goes to processing, usually in a central location, Cincinnati or Chicago or wherever, You lose. There is no incentive in most of these institutions to close on time. They move at their own pace. I don't care if you've banked there for 20 years, and you don't get any special privileges like, I banked there for 20 years, they know I'm a good client, I'm not going to have to somehow provide as many documents as someone else that I've not worked with, because the government regulates all the documents that you're going to have to you're going to have to submit, and it does not change. So the big thing is do they have a vested interest in closing on time, making sure you fulfill your contractual obligations, because there is a close date, there's a financing contingency date, loan commitment date, and they either, and my experience, been doing this for 17 years, I get the feeling that some don't care on the processing side.
So I'll go back to my questions in a bit, but when it comes to like the lender, how can you even find a good lender then? Because at least when I was getting into the business, all I knew were the big banks. I didn't even realize that there was a full sector.
Well, that goes to the other two that I'll mention, the brokers and correspondent lenders. They tend to be the better choice. Number one, that's all they do. All they do is lend money. Could be a purchase mortgage. They do refinances. A lot of them may do equity lines and personal loans, but all they do is lend money. And also, the majority of their business comes from past clients and realtors. So what are they? What's their motivating factor? Their motivating factor is to do a good job, make the process as simple as possible,
communicate,
and to close on time. If there's things that happen. There's things that happen that we just can't control, but they're motivated to do that because why? They want to do a good job so they get more referrals in the future. So they like us, Drew, and because of that, they bust their butt a lot of times. So that's who I would recommend.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, your realtor, whoever you hire, most likely has a couple of good people that they've had good experience with, and rely on your realtor to give you a good recommendation for who they would choose.
Yeah.
They're not going to recommend someone that does a poor job. Trust me on that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with it, because then it would be, not saying like it's our money on the line, but it's our reputation. If we recommend someone that doesn't do a good job, then we get the hit for that.
Right, and the name of the game is getting from point A to point Z and have a completed process and happy clients. And the only way you can do that is for that lending process to be a smooth one as well.
Yeah. Now, kind of going back on the agent side, like obviously I don't want to. I never want to diss another agent because I don't necessarily know where they're at.
Exactly.
But, we've definitely know people that they're just getting into the business and they're trying things out. And we want to give them a chance. So what are the qualities in a new agent that they may not have the experience, but you're like, you know what, I want to try with them?
Well, and that's why I mentioned, something simple as calling you back in a timely fashion, being responsive. Guess what? Doing this for 17 years, you ask me a question, there's a good chance that I may not know it. By the way, I'll get you the answer. I'll get right back to you. And so anyone can do that, even if they're brand new. There's some really, really good people out there that have, here's the thing. Do they have the character to want to do the best job for you and to put your needs ahead of everything else, including a commission check? And that's when you're talking to, interviewing, whatever. Those are good things to try to get a good feeling on.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So you found your agent, you found your lender, and you're in the process of getting pre-approved or pre-qualified, whatever the terminology that people use. What is that process like, and are there any important things that you should consider in that process?
Yeah, the more generalized one is a pre-qualification. A pre-qualification is talking to the lender, explaining how you get paid, what occupation you have, how long you've done it, having them pull your credit, which is a necessary thing for them to be accurate. And they crunch the numbers and say, yes, you can qualify for X amount. Pre-approval is supposed to be extra steps, like you're actually giving documents, bank statements, asset statements, pay stubs, maybe even tax returns. And the full pre-approval process is that lender taking that, going through underwriting, and the underwriter saying you're good to go. All you need to do is find a property within these parameters. And that usually, if you're at that point, you find the property, it has to be inspected, appraised, all that. It fits the parameters, you plug it in, and it's usually a really smooth process after that.
All right. I have 2 questions on this. So the first one, let's say you are pre-approved for $500,000. Does that mean you should get a house that's $500,000, or should you go a bit less to cover closing costs, or how does that work?
Really, really good question. Number one, you may be qualified for X amount of mortgage payment. And when you're thinking mortgage payment, you're thinking principal and interest, but you also should be thinking about taxes and insurance, that whole lump. Just because you qualify for X amount, you really have to be comfortable with X amount, right? So consider both.
All right, yeah. So the second one on that, when it comes to down payment, I talk to a lot of people that they're interested in getting their first house, and they're concerned about how much they need for a down payment. But I know that we have down payment assistance programs that we've heard of.
Yeah, really good question. Number one, some people think that you have to have 20% down to make the mortgage work, and that's not necessarily the case. You get some benefits for putting more money down. Sometimes you get a little bit better interest rate. You don't have to pay monthly mortgage insurance. However, there are programs out there, FHA is one of them, that you can do as low as 3.5% down. VA, if you're a vet, there's a great program, the veteran loan, the VA loan is 0 down. Usually the rates are very, very competitive. But there's also, you mentioned down payment assistance programs. There's down payment assistance programs. Being in Southwest Florida, we have county ones, we have Florida ones. There's a lot of them that they ebb and flow, because a lot of times they'll get funded and then they'll run out of money. But there's a good lender that if they're, another thing, if you're a big national lender, you may not have access to those local things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's another reason why, when talking lender, another good thing we didn't think about is someone local.
Okay.
If I'm buying a property in Southwest Florida, but my cousin's a lender in Michigan,
you may not get the benefits of Southwest Florida.
They may not be licensed down here, but also they may not know the Florida has some peculiarities in the lending process. You just want someone that's familiar with the process and have access to all the programs that we have locally, either county-based or in Florida itself. But
so I guess this kind of comes down to, if you're thinking about getting a house, you should just talk to a lender to kind of figure out all the idiosyncrasies of down payment, pre-approval, and all that stuff.
They're going to touch all that. They're going to talk about the assets that you have. So what's possible? You're going to need down payment. You're also going to need closing costs. And closing costs can vary between 2 and 3. And here's the thing: if you put less than 20% down, now your payment has to have insurance and taxes escrowed with it. So there's extra closing costs there, because those escrow accounts need to be funded at closing. So there's more money that needs to be. So talking to a lender, they're going to ask you all those questions. They're going to know what assets you have, and then they're going to, with your input, decide what program would work best for you.
That makes sense. All right, so now we're on the next part. You got pre-approved, so, for a number. I'm not going to give a specific. That makes no point. Okay, so now you're searching for a house.
Now it's fun, right?
I feel like that's more stressful. So
yeah, it's so funny is because people start out searching. Start getting on the big names, homes.com, Zillow, and whatever, and realtor.com.
Do you deal with people where they search ahead of time and then they get pre-approved for less? And then you have to go through that conversation.
That's another good reason why you want to start that process first, because look, all you can qualify for is $375, but I fell in love with my dream home that happens to be $450. Well, guess what? You fell in love with it. It doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
So having good parameters in place so you can create searches or start searching. I know it's fun to perpetually search, but at a certain point, it needs to be productive.
Yeah. I mean, I can search for $1 million house, doesn't mean I can afford it.
Right. There's a little saying in the real estate world, maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't, And I'll tell you why it came about is, and I hate using it, but buyers are liars. And the reason, because, usually in conversations, we talk about what their needs are, what their wants are, and then they search all over the place. And they end up seeing something they like that's completely different than what they initially talked about. That's why having clear, defined goals, clear, defined what's my non-negotiable, what's my wants, whatever, can make everyone, the better I as a realtor can know about what's really going to work for you, the more productive I can be to help you find.
And I guess this is something that this would make a good real estate agent stand out, because they're going to ask a lot of these questions to make sure that your search is actually something you should afford.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, try not to, and I get buyers who they just want to talk to me for a couple of minutes and kind of give me an idea of what they're looking for. And that's just not productive. It doesn't help. I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
We really need to, if we can't sit down in person, which is the best, have a good conversation. And a good realtor, again, is asking you those deep questions. Why is that important to you? What would make this a 10? What would you like to have, but not necessarily? If you have 10 points, you're probably not going to find a house that fits all 10.
Yeah.
Really, really good is 7, 8. 9 would be amazing.
Yeah, I definitely get that.
So what are the points that you have to have, and what are the ones that you can do without?
You're a buyer, your real estate agent has found you a few houses, and now you're doing tours of that house. Are there anything that you should be considering when doing a tour that either are red flags or green flags? Yeah,
in the buyer, through the buyer's eyes, when they walk into a home that looked interesting online, is they need to, is this floor plan, is this layout, is the general home itself going to suit my needs? You talked about online.
Yeah.
You understand that the listing agent's job is to make it look as pretty as possible on those, high-res photos and all that. So the photos may look great. What's it look like in person?
Yeah.
Plus, if there's a funny room or something bad, it's not out of the ordinary for it to be excluded from the pictures.
Yeah. And I know some houses do have idiosyncrasies that make them unique.
Yeah.
And for the right buyer, it is good, but that's something that you should consider.
There's sometimes we scratch our heads and go, I don't understand. What is this all about?
Yes.
So you can see that. You can see if this, and again, the buyer's looking at it. Does this fit my needs? Does this work for me? And a good realtor should also be looking at, not necessarily, a good realtor isn't there to say something looks great or doesn't look great, because our opinions as aesthetics don't really matter.
Yeah.
It's what the buyer's tastes are. I may not like something and they like something, but what I can do is look at the ceiling and look for stains, look for things that are peeling, and I like to point out the potential problems that I see, because look, number one, if they fall in love with the house, it's going to show up on inspection.
Yeah.
If they know about it in advance, that can help them formulate an offer. Some things they would look at and go, well, I can easily fix that. That's no big deal. And some things may be a big deal to them. So I like to, as a realtor, one of the services I provide is I try to point out anything that I see. And I'm not an inspector. I'm not a home inspector. But if there's something obvious that I see,
there's a gaping hole in the
I'm
ceiling.
not going to ignore it. I'm going to point it out to them and make sure that they see it too.
Can I give a really funny analogy that's
Sure.
weird? It's like when you go to McDonald's and you get a sandwich. The worst thing that can happen is you order a sandwich a specific way and it does not come out that way.
True.
But if they tell you ahead of time they ran out of something, it hits you a bit different.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, anything else that you want to talk about on touring homes?
Yeah, I think this is just kind of a more of a note that you can explain in this day and age with Ring doorbells, Ring cameras, microphones.
Good question. And this is very, very important.
Yeah, take it away.
You have to understand that even if you can't see cameras, there's a good chance that they're there. Just act. And I say that because as you're the buyer walking through the home, if there's something that you could say, or a conversation that you could have that you don't want the seller to hear, don't say it in the house.
Yeah, and I would even clarify, don't even say it outside the house. I would have that conversation either in the car or when you're just away.
I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah, please.
I had a seller, super sweet lady, past clients, bought and sold several homes for them. She had a Ring doorbell. That's all she had. But after every showing, she would call me and say something like, Dave, I think they really like the house. Well, why do you think that? Because when they're outside by the front door, I could hear them talking about how they liked XYZ of the house. So it was her Ring doorbell that she was picking up on, and she would say that. And she would tell me what their conversations were. So again, talk freely, but if there's anything that you don't typically necessarily want the seller to know, don't say it. Ring doorbells are easy to spot, but cameras a lot of times aren't. And a lot of people have cameras in their house.
Yeah, I mean, from working in construction for a bit, you'd be surprised what houses have and where they have them.
Just assume that they're there, even if you can't see them.
Yeah, I fully agree with that.
That's a very good point.
All right, so let's say you walk through a house, it turns out there's no gaping holes in the ceiling, and you love this house, you fall in love with it, and you're about to make an offer. Okay? What is the process of making an offer? Is it like I just walk up to the realtor and say, hey, I want to buy this house? How does it work?
We're having conversations as we're walking through, and we'll know, boy, this really suits all my needs. I like it. I don't like it. I like it. You know, we get to that point where they want to move forward on a house. The one thing that I'll do, it comes up, what do you think about the price? You know, should I offer less? And there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to that because, you know, the seller, especially on a new listing, the seller could be priced perfectly or the seller could be overpriced. So what we'll typically do is I can look through the history. Just because the property's been on the market for a long time, they may have started at a high price, reduce, and now they're actually priced well. But what we'll typically do as realtors for the buyer, a little extra thing that we do, is we'll go in and look to see, like a listing agent would do for a seller, what other recent comparable sales are out there to justify the price that the seller is asking. And they may be a little bit on the higher end. So we can put in an offer that's a realistic offer. We talked about in one of our other videos, one of the pitfalls of trying to lowball, and you can watch that. But you have to understand, sellers shut down when they think that you're trying to get one over on them. If they don't think that you're playing fair, you know, the buyer thinks, okay, well, we're going to negotiate back and forth and meet in the middle somewhere. And a lot of times the seller won't play. They'll just shut you down and say, nope, rejected, and we don't want that to happen. So you want to, if you want to win as the buyer, you want to put in a realistic offer. Now, if the seller doesn't want to be realistic, you don't have to go forward with it either. So,
now there is a wrinkle to the offer, which is earnest money and showing that you are interested in the property by depositing a certain amount of money. I know that that's actually not the law. Like, you don't have to do it. Is that something that you tell your buyers to do?
Well, instead of just talking about that one thing, let's talk about some of the terms. When you're writing an offer, everyone thinks purchase price.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of terms in the offer that you can negotiate, and a lot of those terms in the offer show the seller that you're really interested and you're not playing games or whatever. You're really interested in the property and you really want to get to a successful closing. And one of them is earnest money. Mm-hmm. So, you know, in every area, there's different things that are customary. In our area, 1% to 2% is customary. But if you want to make an impact for the seller, you can show them that you're willing to put down a little bit heavier of a deposit, or put down an initial deposit and then after inspections put down a second deposit. That shows the seller this guy's really interested. So it's not always just purchase price. Another thing that you can do is close date. If the buyer's not buying and having to come out of a rental property and have to close on a certain date, and there's a seller living there, maybe call the list agent and say, hey, what's their situation? Do they need to be in or out at a particular time. Maybe we can formulate our offer with a close date that suits the seller. They may entertain a couple $1,000 less if all the rest of the terms line up with what they're looking for.
And just to add on there, our current contract that is the general one that we use in Florida is 13 pages, and I think it has like 15 or 20 addendums. It's a very long contract. So when someone, oftentimes what we've talked to, when people want to sell for sale by owner, they think, I can just get an offer and that's it. But there's so many idiosyncrasies to a contract where having a qualified realtor can really help you with that process.
Yeah, when I started, it was 8 pages. Now it's 13 pages, and you're right. There's 15-something addendums. It grows and grows and grows because things happen, problems arise, and so the Florida Association of Realtors and the Bar Association, which is attorneys, they get together and they try to make the contract work for as many people as possible. You're right. When you're for sale by owner, you just think, this guy's going to show up and say, hey, I'll pay what you're asking for, and I've got a little briefcase of $20 bills or something like that. It doesn't.
That's a bad sign.
Yeah, well, probably not going to happen that way. But yeah, there's a lot. The only reason why there's 13 pages of our contract is because there's a lot of detail that needs to either be explained, understood, or hammered out. So.
Yeah, definitely. Let's say you find a house for your buyer. You send an offer. The other side accepts that offer. Now you're under contract.
Yep.
Awesome. You're under contract. What's the next step after that?
Typically, the next step, besides getting that deposit submitted to the title company, is all the home inspections.
Okay.
We always recommend that they do, and it's a comfort level thing, and it's a property specific thing. If it's on city water and sewer, you don't need a septic inspection.
Yeah.
But you should always have a general inspection that looks at the house as a whole. In Florida, we have a couple other inspections for insurance that, unless it's a brand new house or a newer house, there's a 4-point inspection that will tell the insurance company that you can even write an insurance policy or not. Looks at AC, roof, electrical, and plumbing. And then there's a wind mitigation inspection, which looks at building techniques that were used in the house to give you insurance discounts. And, bundling that with a general home inspection is usually just, $150 extra or whatever. And you pretty much always get more money in discounts from your insurance, and it'll pay for that. It's almost always well worth it. Now you have, I'm concerned about termites. You could have a separate termite inspection, radon gas, air quality test. Maybe when I walk through the house and had a little musty smell to it. I like the house, but I want to make sure that there's not mold somewhere. They can do an air quality test and look for that. So it's a property determinant and comfort level.
Yeah, and I think, mentioning with our climate, with Florida specifically, with us dealing with hurricanes, you kind of mentioned this offhand like 2 weeks ago, where initially having a new roof was like a badge of honor. Like, oh, look at this house with a new roof. But with Ian and almost all the houses being destroyed or having damage on the roof.
We're here in the beginning of the second month of 2026, and you're right. Pre-Hurricane Ian, you had roofs that were all different ages.
Yeah.
If you had a 10-year-old roof, 12-year-old roof, not a huge difference, not a big deal. You have to understand at a certain point, the insurance company, even if it doesn't leak, the insurance company is the one that's going to dictate they don't want to insure you anymore, and you'll have to get a new insurance or a new roof. I'm sorry. But since Hurricane Ian, when I walk down or drive down the street, to me it looks like probably 75% of the roofs out there are within 3 years old.
Yeah.
So now, if you're looking at 10 houses to potentially purchase, and 8 or 9 of them
have new
or
roofs.
7 or whatever have newer roofs, and one doesn't. Now that one doesn't look that appealing.
Yeah. So definitely wherever you're trying to buy a house, consider the factors of the environment, because that really can make something like a new roof, which initially seemed like a big deal, kind of a moot point.
It changes, yeah. Things change. You're exactly right.
All right, so you do your inspections, and now we're in like a weird phase where the inspections are done. You may be doing some renegotiating. You're kind of finalizing your loan. You're doing some title search. It's kind of a weird phase where you're getting all this extra stuff done. So walk us through that.
Yeah, briefly on the inspections, depending how it turns out, there may be something that the seller didn't know about, and that to move forward with the sale, you ask the seller to take care of or give you a credit. So you've got a little bit of that going on. And then, also the lender is asking you for documents, and they give you an idea. They give you a list of documents that's typically needed for a loan, and then everyone's situation is different. So trust me when I say when the underwriter gets it or they look at it a little bit further, they're going to need something else for you.
Yeah.
And you can make the loan process smooth and close on time if just when they ask for something, you get it to them right away. It makes a big difference. Appraisal, there's going to be an appraisal done. So, which is really the lender's way of saying that, because they have the collateral, your property's collateral for their note. They want to make sure that the value of the property is what it's supposed to be. So it's a protection for them, but it's also a protection for you as a buyer.
That makes sense. Now, while all this is happening, usually either your agent or the other person's agent is working with the title company to ensure title is correct. Can you give a brief description of what exactly title is and maybe some of the things that a title company is doing that involve insurance?
Yeah, real quickly, because a lot of that happens behind the scenes, something that we don't really, unless there's a problem, we know it's happening, but we don't.
It's good if we're not doing a lot of work on that.
but what they're doing, just so you can be sure that you're buying a house with a clean title, they're doing a full title search. If there's anything that shows up, and they're looking at the deeds that are signed and making sure that everyone was to sign everything. If there's a cloud, if there's something that needs to be, if there's a lien on the property, they take care of all that has to be taken care of before the title is marketable and being able to transfer to you, the new buyer. So all that has to happen. It has to happen because they won't insure or they won't issue the title insurance policy, which you're going to have, without that all done.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't want to buy a house that may not even be a house that you're buying.
Yep. Next step, Drew, is what a lot of people don't think about until they're asked by their lender or their realtor, is getting some home insurance quotes.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, because I know that we initially were talking about the fun word wire fraud and how you can not mess up the system, but the problems that people can run into.
Well, you mentioned wire, the escrow deposit and wire fraud. As this process is going, almost every brokerage will have a document that you sign saying, I understand that wire fraud's out there. And all you have to do as a buyer is be cognizant. There's some scams where con artists are sending you emails saying, here's the new wiring instructions where you send your money to. And just the way I explain it is the best thing you can do is if anyone's asking for money, your money, your deposit, and the final funds that you're giving to the transaction is going to the title company. If you ever get anything from them or from anyone claiming to be them saying that you send your money to wherever, just take the extra step in calling the title company.
Yes, every time.
You're in communication with them anyway and saying, hey, I got this, just verify the address, the routing number, and that one little step, which 99.9% of the time is going to be perfect, will prevent you from having a significant problem.
So, I got to ask, as someone that's been in the industry for a long time, have you dealt with that? Or, you probably know people that have dealt with that.
I've seen it. Yeah, not necessarily personally, but we have, as realtors, we get contacted all the time by people who are pretending to be someone else, wanting us to sell. It's usually a vacant land because it's easier. It's usually, they target foreign owners like German owners or whatever, and then they pretend to be them. And 90% of the time, they're pretty easily sniffed out. But we on our side have to be, we have to watch out for the fraud also on our side.
Yeah.
Talking about home insurance.
Yeah. Sorry, I went on a tangent.
Yeah, it's okay. When you're shopping home insurance, understand its price is a big deal, But you also have to look at the coverage that you're getting. If you have two quotes and one's a little cheaper than the other, look at all the coverages. Make sure that they have equal coverage. The biggest, when someone's upset at their insurance company because they didn't pay out on a claim, sometimes it's because the coverage in the policy wasn't what the owner thought it was. And, it's easy for us to just shop for the cheapest one. But you also, okay, that's wonderful, but you also have to look at the coverage and make sure you understand, number one, it's that you're comparing apples to apples, but also if it is last coverage, you understand that there's a certain risk there that something might not be covered.
So I think we should take like maybe a wider view for a quick second. So when you're buying a house, you have the purchase price, you have the title insurance, you have the homeowner's insurance, and sometimes you have mortgage insurance, correct?
Yeah.
So that's not including utilities. You have to factor all that stuff into the purchase, correct? Am I missing anything?
Yeah, they're all protecting different aspects of the purchase.
Yeah, awesome. We're in the contract process. We do all the work. We confirm everything. Looks like this house is going to be yours, and we do a final walkthrough.
Yeah.
Why do we do the final walkthrough?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
You do the final walk, right before you sign. Now, you walk through that. You might have walked through the house initially when you fell in love with it 30, 45 days ago. We've had inspections done. We've had appraisals done. That's all great. But now we're getting, a month and a half has gone by, and you're getting ready to sign and actually take ownership of the property. You kind of want to know if it's the way it was a month ago, especially if people are moving out, people are moving furniture. You want to make sure that someone didn't knock a hole in the wall.
It would theoretically be the same, wouldn't it?
Well, it usually is. We usually don't have problems, but you want to, even if there's not a problem, you want to make sure that you have the peace of mind that when I'm heading to the title company, I'm signing, I'm giving them the last bit of money that I owe, that you're actually buying what you think you're buying. Occasionally, there's been a time, this has been many years ago, where, just give you one example.
Yeah, please.
When things are attached to the walls, they are to convey with the property. If it's loose, if it's a couch, if it's a chair, that's considered personal property. Unless you have it in the contract, there's no expectation that conveys with the house. If it's attached to the wall, we expect that it conveys with the house, unless there's something
where it's like
in the
written
contract
ahead of time.
exactly
Yeah.
that is excluded. So we had an issue with these really, really nice garage cabinets. Obviously, they're attached to the walls, and upon final walkthrough, they had disappeared.
They took the cabinets in the
Yeah.
garage.
So, and I don't even know if if the listing agent knew that, but when the buyer or when the sellers were moving out, so we went back and the buyer got a credit. So we made it work, and that now there was money there, they can install a cabinet. We made it work, but again, if you didn't do the final walkthrough, you wouldn't know that was the case.
And if you didn't do the final walkthrough and just bought the house, you wouldn't be able to get that credit.
No, the contract gives you full right to do the home inspection or the walkthrough. You don't have to, but you take that risk that if something isn't exactly the way it is.
All right, so we do the final walkthrough. It turns out this is the perfect house. Everything's good, no issues whatsoever.
Closing day.
Closing! What do we need to bring to closing?
Don't forget your ID.
You need an ID to close.
You do.
But you're there.
You have to prove that you're that person signing.
That you exist.
So yeah, bring yourselves and your identification. We being in Southwest Florida, there are ways to close remotely. We have a lot of people that don't live here that are buying from somewhere else, and so the title companies are very, very well versed of making remote closings possible, either with a remote notary that comes to you. There's various ways to do that. But if you're here locally, we're meeting at the title company. We're signing. We're documenting everything. There's a lot to sign.
Yeah.
Typically. And then you get the keys at the end, and everyone should be happy.
So before we go on to the final question, is remote closing something that we're just specialized in Southwest Florida because we're Southwest
I
Florida?
think anymore in the digital age, it's everywhere.
Okay.
We probably did more of it early on. It's very, very common for either the seller or the buyer, one of the parties, not to be here. Very, very common. So there's different ways you can do that. Whether there's a loan, lenders and the actual deed and most of the lending documents have to be wet signed. So a lot of times they will send the documents either through email or through FedEx to the people, signed, notarized, and then FedEx back as a way to do that.
All right. So we got through closing, signed everything. I proved that I exist. And then after the closing, I think sometimes there's a conception that your home ownership is official. You don't have to worry about anything else after closing.
Well, here's the thing. Most likely you bought that house that was 8 out of 10, not 10 out of 10, because that's almost impossible to find.
True.
You're going to do something. You're going to paint. You're going to fix something. You're going to swap something out. And what I would tell you is to rely on your realtor if you need something, if you need an electrician. We work with so many of those people that we know who the good ones are. The ones that the ones that I invite to my house to do work on my house are the ones that I'm going to recommend to you. I know that they do a good job. So rely on your realtor because you should be able to get good recommendations for a lot of those. And is for every good AC company out there, there's someone that's going to try to take you for more money than you should owe. And unfortunately, that is commonplace. So a good recommendation for a vendor, I think, is a must.
Yeah. Now, what about taxes and homestead exemptions?
Yeah. If you're buying this for your primary residence, what you will want to do is file for the homestead exemption. You can file January 1st to March 1st, as long as, as of December 31st, you've owned the property. That following January 1st, you can file for your homestead exemption. The homestead exemption in Florida is a wonderful thing. It's a reduction of taxable value, a $50,000 reduction in taxable value. So you instantly pay less in if you consider this your primary residence.
Yeah.
And there's a portion that a lot of people don't quite understand that I'll get into is it's called Save Our Homes, and it's your taxes. Okay, you got reduced. That's wonderful, but now as values go up and inflation happens, your taxes in Florida, if it's homesteaded, are capped to increase at a maximum of 3% a year. It's either a consumer price index or 3%, but think of it as a maximum of 3%. So if you're in your house for 15 years, you'll most likely end up paying artificially less property taxes than someone else.
And this is actually a great point. If you're interested in...
Don't forget to file your homestead exemption.
Yeah, please.
I know people who forget.
It's so important. And if you're interested in buying a house that has low taxes, just letting you know, you can't use that as an indicator that will be the taxes that you'll pay.
Yeah, when you're looking, let's say you're looking at five properties. This comes up all the time.
Yeah, I get
it.
Hey,
Dave, these are all houses in the same price range, all similar size houses. These two over here, taxes are similar. This one's really low. This one's really low. What's going on? And that's what's going on.
Hey,
primary
what's going
residents,
on?
They've lived there for a while. Their taxes that they currently have are artificially low. You're not going to get that.
Yeah.
You're going to get the regular rate. However, one more point with our property taxes, if you homestead and that savings over the years that you've accumulated by paying less, and you decide to upsize or downsize or make a change in Florida, that amount of savings is portable now.
Really?
So you can take that amount of savings to the new property.
Oh, that's
and it hadn't always been like that.
That's nice. I like that. All right, I think that's the entire process. So, just to quickly run through it one more time. So you're going to decide what you're buying, set up non-negotiables, choose a great agent and a great lender, get pre-approved, define your search, and take home tours to find the perfect house. Then you need to make a good, competent offer. Don't lowball them too far. Once you're under contract, do your inspections, get checked with insurance, finalize your loan application, do the title search and homeowners insurance search, and then you go to the final closing walkthrough. Make sure you do that, please, for the love of God. And then also closing day and all the after closing stuff. Is there anything I missed on there?
That's pretty much it. And remember, everyone's situation is different. So
Yeah.
reach out to us if you have a question about something. Again, every situation is different. Different properties, different communities. There's more nuances than we even hit.
Yeah.
But hopefully this gives you a really good idea of the basic process that we go through every day here.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much once again. I really enjoyed these, and we'll be back to discuss the selling side because that's a different beast entirely.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Have a great day.